Yes, good afternoon to all. On behalf of Bizsolindia Services, I, CMA Amit Devade, welcome you all on this session of Budget 2020-23. We like to mention here that we are celebrating our 25 years of services and a remarkable journey to all of you with the tagline of Strategy in Partners. We Bizsolindia always path ahead to make the budget analysis, in-depth clause-by-clause analysis to your footstep and to your mailbox in a detailed way from the last 25 years. We believe that once the budget is declared, entire Big Soul is working on the clause-by-clause analysis and the in-depth budget analysis for you for your value addition. The budget. Now we speak for the budget. This budget gives us the estimated 9.2% of highest GDP rate for all large economies. This budget gives us about the hope of the blueprint to steer the economy over the next Amrut Kal of next 25 years. That is 75 to 100. And this entire budget is mainly focused on the four pillars. That is, first is PM Gati Shakti, second, inclusive development, next is product enhancement and the sunrise. And last is financing of the investment. With all of these surprises, all of these new clause, we are here to give you in-depth analysis of the budget. Now I welcome our first speaker, CMA Ashok Naval sir, who is the founder of Bizsolindia, to give the budget overview.
Good afternoon. It gives a tremendous pleasure to me that Honorable Finance Minister has completed her finance speech, that is a budget speech, by 12:45 p.m. And we are ready with absolute analysis of all the tax provisions, all the budget, economic point of view, and that we take definitely the pride of our team. And we are the first to share you the analysis of the budget. And clause by clause analysis, you will get it by the time you reach at home. We did all the analysis of economy, the perspective which Honorable Prime Minister we have put, he has put before us, and what is the path ahead of the economy. And that we'll be deliberating in next 45 minutes of the budget overview, followed by detailed changes on the Act, GST, Customs Act, GST Act, custom tariff changes, and an Income Tax Act. This budget 22-23 was on the backdrop of continued pandemics. The first wave, complete lockdown. Second wave, not fully lockdown, but more pandemic, more deaths, more losing ends. Fortunately, third wave is very highly spread, but less harmful. And with that background, definitely with that COVID impact, economy last year we have seen there was a negative growth of 7.2%. And with that, we were getting the positive signals. Revenue collections were going up. Economy has shown the positive signals and higher rate than that of any of the higher growth rate than that of any of the country in the world. While this was on the golden side, there was a concern on rising unemployment. Public health, we were ready for the third wave. Fortunately, not much much hospitalization has taken place. But more we have learned to focus on health industry. MSME was the worst sufferer because of low demand, though a lot of inputs were put by the Honorable Prime Minister in the last financial budget. And because of industry suffered bad, reduction in purchasing power, demand generation was the worrisome aspect. And that was the challenge. But fortunately, let us really appreciate the vision of our Prime Minister and the changes he has not made only for the change. Taken at the base. Are you not able to see?
They are not listening.
Hello, I'm audible.
Now.
Yeah.
It's the last 2 minutes now.
So, Honorable Prime Minister did lot of efforts and made changes not only for change. He wanted to change and therefore made a foundation of a new India, digital India, make in India, and we have started marching ahead to achieve the dream of Honorable Prime Minister, making India 5 trillion economy. I'm not going to repeat in last COVID wave how much package was given by Honorable Prime Minister to revive the industry. And the same focus has continued. Production Link Incentive Scheme was approved by 13 sectors, which is more for making India self-sufficient. Automobile and auto component for mainly electric vehicles. Pharmaceutical drugs for making a health is a concern. Specialty steel, telecom and networking products, electronic and technology products, white goods, food products, textile products, especially MMF segments and technical textile, solar PV models, advanced chemistry cell battery, medical devices, electronic components, and major APIs. That was the major change which has been made, which has definitely provided a lot of good foreign investment, and FDI's inflows was very high. The major, lot of you might have seen in today's finance minister's speech, 1,080 of tax, which was acts has been repealed. Ease of doing business is the focus. When we talk on the BPO sector, liberalized guidelines, then new guidelines limited for voice-based BPO services, removal of registration requirement, no bank guarantee requirement, distinction between domestic and international OSPs, work from home from remote locations allowed, interconnection with 2 or more OSP centers, infrastructure sharing of OSP is allowed, and guidelines allowed to use EPPX at foreign location. This was the reason BPO sector has given good positive growth. IT sector is started growing in India again, and today is a shortage of manpower in electronic sector, in IT sector. When you see the structural reforms, the measures taken by the ministry, rationalization of adjusted gross revenue, bank guarantee rationalization, interest rate rationalization and penalties for delayed payment of license fees was removed. 100% FDI in automatic route was allowed. No spectrum usage charges and spectrum sharing was encouraged. Additional SEC of 0.5% of spectrum sharing was removed. And that is the reason there is a boom in telecom sector. When you see the process reforms, E is for doing business. Requirement of custom clearance of import of wireless equipment removed. Self-declaration for ease of doing business. Standing advisory committee for radio frequency allocation clearance process. Self KYC was permitted. Paper custom acquisition form is replaced by the digital storage of data. And auction calendar fix. So a lot of measures has been taken to revive the telecom sector, which is going to be making India as a digital India. The best part is transparent process, which you have seen, the public procurement policy. You will be happy to see yesterday's presentation or the data which has been revealed in the economic survey that government is purchasing at lower prices than that on Amazon or Flipkart in the majority of this. Quality come cost based selection of the bidders and majority of this on the e-auction and e-bidding. Stringent deadlines for making payment, 75% bill raised to be paid within 10 days. If you might have heard today, the finance minister, again she said repeatedly, all running bills will be paid to the extent of 75% within 10 days, and then after scrutiny and all those things will go on. Arbitration of dispute resolution, specific board has been, committee has to review for filing appeal against the order, and this is what 75% payment has been made immediately. As far as aviation sector, which has seen very bad days in the COVID period, a lot of change has been made. Extended applicability of road, drone up to 500 kilo, 300 to 1000 kilo. Several approval abolished and total forms which was has been reduced to 5. Fees for 70 to 4. Link with the size of drone. Requirement of removal of requirement of prior security clearances. Earlier restrictions on all foreign entities owning, manufacturing and dealing with the drones in India has been done away with. No remote pilot license required for micro drones, non-commercial use and nano drones. Expanded areas of drone operations, and that is the reason you might have seen in today's finance minister's speech that agriculture farmers will be helped by the drone for crop identification, for spraying of insecticides and fungicides. Banking reforms, deposit insurance from 1 lakh to 5 lakhs has been increased. Introduce interim payment system for deposit insurance and credit guarantee so that if even the bank goes on, your money is fixed. Timeline of maximum 90 days is linked with the interior payment to the depositors. A liberalization for MSME in the IBC. Expansion in the factoring system of ecosystem for earlier condition of NBFC whose principal business was factoring has been removed and NBFC has permitted to the factoring business also. MSME, apart from now manufacturing is removed. Earlier there were different limits. Upward revision. So your MSME, now major units have also started up to 250 crores of the turnover, up to 50 crores of investment. All that will be covered under the MSME. Registration process is very simple, and the Samadhan scheme and the conciliation and arbitration in Samadhan scheme is definitely yielding very positive results. Within 45 days, payment started coming in, otherwise interest is liable to be paid. MSME, lot of things has been done in last budget also. As far as space and geospatial sector is concerned, a special focus has been given in this budget also. Traditional satellite communication and remote sensing sectors have been increased in private sector participation also. Guidelines for creation, acquisition, use of geospatial data, including maps, was earlier very regulated. Now guidelines has been liberalized. I'm not going more details into that. Disinvestment, you might have seen airline, Air India is back to the Tata. One of the PSU on the steel has been again back to the Tata. New public sector enterprise policy and asset monetizing policy of new policy has classified as strategic and non-strategic sector. Policy of privatization of non-strategic sector and bare minimum presence in strategic sectors. Government says we want to do the governance and not the business. And that is the reason disinvestment is promoted. National monetization pipeline. Top 5 sectors, road, railways, power, oil and gas, mining, telecom, 83% is going to be a disinvestment. The most important thing is the new labor reforms. Number of old laws has been repealed and only 4 labor codes will be applicable. Effective date will be notified, but almost you might have seen in today's newspaper, 14 state government has already made draft labor rules. No sooner all government makes the labor rules, the codes will be effective and that will add to ease of doing business. As far as defense sector is concerned, you might have seen today, more than 60% of defense requirement is taken from India, no imports, and that will be further increased. Corporatization of ordnance factory approved and 7 new defense public sector undertaking been created. FDI has been enhanced up to 74% through automatic route from 70 up to 7 and 100% through the government route. So on the defense front, we are going to be self-sufficient and defense is going to be more focused on India, make in India product. If startups, you might have seen the startup graph. Almost in each, India is proud. Even you might be aware on the, most of you might be watching the Shark Tank. You can see from the village also, the startups are coming. So India will be full of entrepreneurs, and that is what the creative India. The maximum support has been given in the startup in the NDA government time. With this, what has been with all those policies taken in the last finance budget, before also period, and basic changes which are the regulation. Focus on you might have seen all GDP 8.4, which is going to be targeted more at 9.22. You might have seen in 21 dropped to minus 7.2. Again, by the vigilance, we have gone up 8.4 and expected in this financial year 9.22, and next year is projected 8.5%. This is the World Bank projection. The GDP growth is the fastest pace than that of other countries, including India is topping more than China, US, Europe, Brazil, South Africa, Russia, and Japan. We are expected to grow by FY 8.3, whereas in 23, 8.7. So my GDP growth, which is talk about it 8.55 in the next year. If you see that next tax rise in the tax revenue, a tax revenue has increased substantially, whereas gross fiscal deficit is coming down and it is aimed to 6.6% in the next year. And by 2025, it will be 4.5%. This is what our economy is marching ahead. Now, when we see the GST itself, you might have seen today's finance minister has announced 1.48 lakh crores has been the GST collection in the month of April. Highest so far from the introduction of GST, or highest tax collection so far from the freedom of India, in spite of lowering and rationalizing the tax. Now, when you see this steady growth in manufacturing sector has very shown the positive trend, the change you will see from the year. Again, this is the total tax collection, April to November 2019, and now you will see April to November 2021, direct tax and indirect tax. This is what is going to be, and that is the reason if tax is collected more, growth is going to be there, because that tax is going to be put for the growth of India. And that is the reason Honorable Finance Minister 2 times sincerely thank all the taxpayers who has made India to grow, tax to grow. Fiscal deficit has come down and expected to be much lower. The GDP terms, when we see it, from years and onwards, our GDP growth is higher. And if you see the recovery, 1920 the pre-pandemics, 2021 when the pandemic, and 2021 also was the pandemics. In spite of that, we have crossed that pre-pandemic period. Even this is what is the resilience of the sector we have made. Agricultural sector has also shown to monsoon, to our farmers, 3.9% growth. So 107 recovery percent is more than 7%. Industry has grown by 4.1%. Mining 4.6, manufacturing 4.4, electricity, gas, water supply and utility services 10.5, construction 1.2. Again, construction, when we talk about, real estate sector goes up. Whereas service sector has not shown that positive step, rather there, because of that only, the growth in service sector to that extent is lower. Demand We have reached to pre-pandemic demand recovery. We have made to the extent of 99.2%. Out of that, the vision of Honorable Prime Minister to make a capital infrastructure. And therefore, you might have seen the government consumption is higher by 10.7% than that of earlier pre-pandemic period. Private consumption is still has not gone to that extent because of lower people. Export has reached highest, imports also has grown up, and that is the reason Forex reserve has gone to the extent of $634 billion dollars. So it is equivalent to 13 months import of India. This we have already talked on. Capital expenditure continued to be at 143.1, highest from so many years. And infrastructure development, focus is on infrastructure development. This is what I was to talk on. Yesterday, I was really amazed to see. In 1617, this was the map which was made from the startup which was there in India. And 1921-22, that is by 22nd December, the statistic is in Maharashtra itself, more than 15,000 startups are there. Startup you will see from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and you can say Kutch to northeastern state. Across everywhere you might have seen these yellow figures, where there is not a place where startups are not coming. And that is what we talk, India is the place of entrepreneurs. Inflation is the alarm. Though cost, that is the consumer price index, has been made stable, but wholesale price index is going very high. Mainly today, you might have seen the oil prices in the international market has boomed to the $90 per barrel. Until that is coming up, until there is something as a substitute is developed, till that time, we will have the issue, we will be facing the issue of the oil crisis, and because of that, some crisis, inflation. But the major task before this ministry today is curtailing the inflation. And IMF forecast for 22-23, you might have seen, India is growing, and all other countries, their growth is decreasing, whereas India growth is increasing. That is what we have to be proud of our India and the vision of Honorable Prime Minister. Now, with this all economic survey and background, what we were expecting from this budget, and let us see whether this budget has given us. Definitely, I was saying more covered under the aim sector among the other sectors. I was also expecting there has to be total revamp of the SEZ scheme, ease of doing business in SEZ, then only the commonness, the infrastructure of SEZ can be properly utilized and can be augmented for domestic industries too. As far as direct tax was concerned, I was expecting the ETC limit has not been extended from years together. And considering the work from home and additional expenses of that, I was also expecting there will be a standard deduction, increase in standard deduction. But unfortunately, this budget do not provide that. I was also expecting equalization levy of 2% to be deleted from the intragroup for the intragroup. I was also expecting tax reduction for corporate companies, 15%. I was also expecting long-term capital gains, the limit has to be increased substantially. Today, we are definitely, all of us are facing the problem on the e-assessment and e-adjudication. And PH mechanism has to be mandatory. And I was also expecting taxation on the cryptocurrencies. So some of the hopes of ours has been definitely seen in this budget. Let us see what it is. As far as indirect tax is concerned, I was expecting that there will be a rise in the custom duty and number of exemptions will be withdrawn. GST rate will get unchanged. Section 17, which is becoming the hurdle for the cascading effect, which will also go on. Compensation says the period which was there for the 5 years will be enhanced and tribunals will be set up, because nowadays number of my appeals at the Commissioner Appeals also has been rejected and will have to knock the doors of High Court. So litigation cost increase. What again we were expecting as far as economy is concerned, or from the budget, that agriculture sector is the need of our to give this stimulus package for the real estate and hospitality industries, income tax benefit for promoting real estate industries and hospitality industries, control on inflation, income tax benefit for the new investment. You see, for startup, there was a sunset limit, as well as under section 115 BAB, new manufacturing sector which is coming in, there was a sunset clause. If you start manufacture before 31/3/2023, then only this one. But in COVID period, number of manufacturing unit could not start the commercial production. So lower taxation for them should have been extended. Special package for the woman entrepreneur I was expecting. And I was expecting focus on infrastructure, health and education. This was the expectation from the budget. Now, just we will turn on what has been given in the budget. Honorable Finance Minister has focused in this budget that there are 5 pillars. Which are those pillars? One is, he said, PM Gati Shakti. As Gati Shakti indicates, name Gati indicates road, railways, airports, ports and mass transport and waterways and logistics. It has been proposed in the 1 year 22-23, 20,000 crores on the roads will be spent, and 25,000 kilometers will be laid down. As far as railways are concerned, 2,000 kilometers of network will be enhanced. New generation Vande Bharat trains will be increased with the best of the experience of the energy efficiency and the passenger. 8 ropeways project at the length of 60 kilometers will be awarded. Airports will be revamped, ports will be revamped. Mass transportation and waterways will be promoted. And multimodal logistic part at 4 locations will be awarded by in the year 22-23. And when PM Gati Shakti Yojana is implemented through 7 engines, what will happen? No sooner infrastructure is generated, manufacturing sector grows up, employment grows up, and when employment grows up, demand due growth to the Gati to the growth of India. Focus is on inclusive development. The 4 farm laws unfortunately was repealed, and people were expecting there has to be something for the farmers. For wheat and paddy, we paid directly to the extent of 2.37 crores through MSP. Kisan Drone for crop assessment, digitization of plant records, spraying of insecticides and nutrients. Making India Sudlam and Suplam, Ken Betwa river link will definitely benefit, will be for that 44,605 crores will be put in and 62 lakhs people will be benefited. Power of 103 NW will be generated, 27 solar power will be generated, and for that allocation is more than 4,300 crores in 21-22 and 1,400 crores in 22-23. Again, 5 DPRs, that is the Daman Ganga Pinjal, Par Tapi Narmada, Godavari Krishna, Krishna Pennar and Pennar Karwar. Majority of the India part will be covered for the productivity investment, enhancement and investment. Sunrise finalized. Beneficial state has to agree with each other, and that center is going to support for the implementation with finance. MSME is always the key sector. 27% of the GDP is contributed by the MSME. For them, Udyam, Ishram, NCS and ASEEM portals will be interlinked. ELG, emergency credit line guarantee schemes is already there with that 50,000 crores with a total cover of 5 lakh crore with the additional amount being earmarked. So total 55,000 crore is here for under ELGS. 2 lakh crore under the CGT MSE scheme and RAM program with outlay of 6,000 crores in 5 years. This will MSME portal focus on MSME, special ministry on MSME, payment revision terms in MSME, procurement, 60% procurement in the defense from the MSME is definitely going to make MSME more strengthened. MSME generates maximum employments. So this budget provides startup support to the startup, and Drone Shakti Yojana has been introduced. Universalization of quality education, digital university to promote the digital India, and more only one TV, one class, 242 channels for education. I think India is going to be well learned immediately. Nobody will be deprived for the education. Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, National Telemental Health Program, Mission Shakti, Mission Vatsalya, Anganwadi Poshan, Har Ghar Har Nal. If you see yesterday's or you see the economic survey, Bihar is having a maximum place where tap water is coming. Gone are the days that I have to travel on the Handa and take the water for miles together. Housing for all, Aspiration Block Program, Vibrant Village Program, and most dynamic, making digital India's dream true, anytime, anywhere, post office savings through digital banking and net banking. Digital banking and digital payment are focus, and that is going to make inclusive growth, and that is the reason under the Inclusion India program. You will see a lot of budgetary provisions for the opportunities, energy transition and climate actions. You might have seen India is the first in the change commitment what India has made in 3 years back on the climate change. They have achieved much higher, much earlier than that what was focus and financing of investments. That all that is going to make India a super dream, making change in the Indian foundation to make always to the superpower and achieve the dream. With this stage, what are my colleagues, Mr. Manoj Malpani, Preeti Kulkarni, and Manoj Bede is going to talk to you all the major changes in the direct tax, indirect tax. But what I'm going to focus on, the focus of the budget as far as direct tax is concerned. Updated return. You might have seen the income tax portal. You get all the information of your spending and earnings through digital media, through net banking. And if you furnish a wrong return, unnecessary litigations and 60% of payment of tax arises. Therefore, trust India. First, we were talking about the Make in India, Digital India. Now we say trust India, Indians. And that is what government says. That is the minimum government, maximum governance. And that is the reason it has been said you can file your updated return within the period of 2 years anytime. Reduce alternate minimum tax and surcharge for the cooperatives so that level playing field is there. Earlier, cooperatives were unnecessarily charged more. For me and for a lot of people in India who are suffering from the disabilities, tax relief and annuity scheme will give that definitely. So that is what we are talking about. India is concerned of senior citizen, and we are going towards the social aspect, social security aspect, and that is what we need to appreciate. Parity between employees and state and central government employees. Though it is a central government budget, government always thought of state government too, irrespective of which government those are employees. And state government also will be treated as a central government as far as their FPF taxability is concerned. And startups has been given, newly corporate manufacturing, and digital asset, cryptocurrency, 30% tax without any set off of earlier losses from that income. That is what is most admirable. Litigation management to avoid the repetitive appeals when one matter of a particular issue, identical matter is pending with the High Court or Supreme Court. For that reason, department will not initiate the action. Tax incentive to the gift city and international cities. For SEZ, there are going to be changes, which definitely you will see it. As far as indirect tax, customs are concerned, number of exemptions has been withdrawn. Tariff rate itself is at earlier when I have to see the tell my client what is the rate of tax, I have to see the tariff rate, then see the number of notifications, and then tell him what is the effective rate of notification subject to meeting conditions and so on. Now tariff rate has been rationalized, so no need to see the effective rate of notification for 400 HSN codes, which is, I think, very substantial simplification. New entities added to the first schedule as far as making with the WCO standards. Make in India is the dream. Swadeshi India is the dream. And that is, therefore, they are facing with the competition from the international market. To prevent that, capital goods exemptions, number of exemptions for capital goods has been removed. IGCRD rules has been simplified and everything interface has been totally removed. Everything on the E mode. Your permissions are on E mode, returns are on also E mode, assessment and adjudications are also on E mode. You can pay your own duty on the E mechanism. Duty concession on specialized item of imported to the bona fide exporters, mainly to promote exports like aqua sectors or otherwise. Main important good news is interface is going to be removed because we wanted to make corrupt-free India. Dream is there, corrupt-free India. I don't know how much bureaucracy accepts it. And even the industry supports it. On the re-export, no need to take any permission from any custom officer or excise officers. Provisions of Act has been changed considering the e-assessment and e-adjudications. You might have seen it is a self-assessment. bill of entry will be filed, it will be given on this one, and it will be assessed by any of the officers sitting in India. E-adjudications also will be done anywhere of any officer sitting in India, and therefore, to facilitate those changes, whatever the act was related to change, those acts amendment has been made. Very encouraging changes in the custom. However, GST is concerned. Now, I'll only say, whatever government thinks to give you ITC, only that will be allowed. So not like that, you have got the invoice in your possession, you have received the goods and services in possession, and you have paid the supplier, that may not be necessary that to entitle you to take the credit. I'm not going to talk more because Manoj is going to take that subject very deliberately, but mind well, your selection of supplier is going to be a test to get you ITC. Otherwise, you will not be competitive in international market. That is guaranteed. So focus in GST changes to make, if government has received the tax, then only you will receive the ITC. Very simple and simple formula. With this, I will request my colleagues to go important changes on each of the tax provisions and elaborate that, because business needs to focus on strategies and 100% statutory compliance and 100% benefit in the legal framework. We are always there to support you, to provide you. Now, let us be tax compliant. Let us be taking all the benefits to become the competitive, and let us build India to make 5 trillion economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Just give me 2 minutes.
Yes, now I request CA Manoj Malpani to give us the insights about the indirect taxes and the SEZ. Yes, we are having the question answer round also at the end of the session. So we request you to post your questions in the question answer box. Yes, now it's time for indirect tax and the SEZ. CA Manoj Malpani will be joining within 1 minute. Yes, Manoj have joined.
Recording in progress.
Just a moment. I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, I hope I'm online. Yes, now coming on to the Naval sir has covered the overview of budget and its macro and microeconomic factors very nicely. So thank you, Naval sir, uh, for a nice session. Now I would be covering changes which are proposed in GST and Customs Act. Now we all know GST would the overall policy is governed by GST Council. So unlike earlier regime under central excise or service tax, there were major changes which used to come in indirect tax in budget are not now. However, certainly this budget, you would see that there are quite a few changes in GST. And why it is important is you can see or sense where the government wants to go. One thing is very clear that somebody has told government an idea to increase the revenue from GST. There are two ways of increasing the revenue from GST. One is you increase the tax, or there is an overall increase in consumption in India, so outward tax is more. Another way, the way government is looking at it is they want to control the input tax credit. The moment there is control on input tax credit, automatically there would be impact on collection of GST on outward tax. Because आप inward को control करेंगे तो outward tax ज़्यादा जाएगा, inward restrict करोगे तो outward tax ज़्यादा जाएगा, और government के जो numbers है that would look very good in terms of implementation. So with this focus probably in mind, government has proposed certain changes in GST. The focus, as I've said, is mainly on how you should avail input tax credit. और कभी कभी मुझे तो लगता है, we all know right now there is a famous movie Pushpa going on, और उसमें से काफी डायलॉग फेमस है. उसमें का एक फेमस डायलॉग है कि फ्लावर समझा है क्या फायर हूं मैं. सो मुझे कभी कभी लगता है आईटीसी के प्रोविजन, जीएसटी के बाकी प्रोविजन को यही डायलॉग बोलते होंगे कि मुझे क्या फ्लावर समझा है क्या, मैं फायर हूं ये सेक्शन का, ये एक्ट का. सो विद दैट there are a lot of changes which are proposed in the input tax credit. So the first and foremost change what is proposed is the way you make the tax payment. The government want to control how you make the tax payment out of your input tax credit. So a new section which governs the payment of tax has been amended, and that section would specify the restriction for utilization of input tax credit for your outward tax payment. I'll repeat because it is very important. A new section is proposed to be added in the payment of tax related provisions, by which how much input tax credit you should utilize for payment of your outward tax for the month can be restricted. So it's a big amendment which government intends to have. So you may come up with in future, and again, and wherever they did not want to specify anything, they have said we would specify as may be specified. That's how the wording of the section has been put in. They may say tomorrow that you would only be liable to pay tax only to the extent of 80% from your input tax ledger. Balance you have to pay through cash. So such kind of restrictions can be put in for payment of your outward liability. So again, the focus is they don't want you to allow full input tax credit for payment of your outward liability. The reasons, they may be having many reasons to say that why they want to bring that provision. But when on the one hand you talk about ease of doing business, the index, or if you look at the comment of Nirmala Sitharaman in her Madam Nirmala Sitharaman in her budget speech, she had clearly stated that they want to have a system based or a network based GSTN. So इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि the system would be on the first part, and according to that system the law would be devised. So if they are seeing in the system that people are misusing some credits and not paying through cash, just paying through ITC, to control those taxpayers, such kind of provisions are brought in. However, I really fear that with such provisions, the majority of taxpayers who are, I would say, true or who are very clear, they would be affected for sure. So with this amendment, there can be in future condition that whatever is my outward liability, I can only pay 80%, 70%, 90% through ITC, and balance compulsorily I may have to pay through cash. So that is the big amendment which is proposed in GST. Now, second, as I've said, that they want to restrict or control input tax credit. Of late, we have read a lot of cases where they have busted the GST rackets, where only fake bills are issued without actual movement of goods. So in order to control all that tax menace, the government is surely focusing on input tax credit. Now the input tax credit, the basic section eligibility is section 16, we all know. So that section 16 has been proposed to amend that the credit would be available only on the basis of what is getting communicated to the taxpayer. And if there are certain restrictions which are communicated to the taxpayer should not avail the credit of such restricted transactions. Now, if I barely read the provision for everybody's benefit, which you can even see on the screen, the details of input tax credit in respect of said supply communicated to such person under section 38 has not been restricted. So if it is not been restricted as communicated to him, then the taxpayer can avail the credit. And if for any reason the credit is restricted, for which reason credit is restricted, they have specified under section 38, which I'm going to cover. So if there are restriction communicated to you, then for such transaction, the taxpayer is not eligible to avail the input tax credit of those transactions. Now, if we look at that section 38, इतने दिन अपन सोचते थे कि एलिजिबिलिटी के लिए मुझे सेक्शन 16 ही देखना है, जो कुछ 16 में बोला है और 17(5) में जो रिस्ट्रिक्शन दिए है उतना ही मुझे क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा. Now come another hero in the input tax credit sections, which is section 38. और ये section 38 is complex in itself. Though the government will say that we would communicate you the restricted credit, but if you look at that restrictions of credit, you would be amazed that how I should choose my suppliers. हो सकता है आपको एक नया पोर्टल या चालू करना पड़ेगा जिसमें आप एनालाइज करो कि आपके सप्लायर वो कहीं रिस्ट्रिक्शन में बैठ रहे क्या बिफोर अवेलिंग क्रेडिट. एंड not to forget, if we avail any credit of such restricted, then there would be interest if subsequently noticed by the department. So it is very, very important going forward that all taxpayer has to look at their GSTR 2B and look at the restricted credit as communicated under section 38. अभी आपका एक बोलते ना उत्कंठा झाली असेल की what is there in section 38? 16 पढ़ा है, 17 पढ़ा है, अब ये नया सेक्शन 38 क्या डाला जिसमें इतने रिस्ट्रिक्शन डाल दिए हैं to really look at the credit. Now let's go to section 38. What are those restrictions? Section 38 has said that we may place restrictions on input tax credit. I'll read one by one and explain one by one. The restriction may be placed on tax reported by a newly registered taxpayers. इसका मतलब उन्होंने इतना स्पेसिफाई नहीं कि आगे जाके उन्होंने एक लाइन डाल दी है as may be prescribed. But if you look at the real wording of this restriction, is that they may say that if I'm a newly registered taxpayer, unless and until I file my returns regularly for next 3 months or consecutive 3 months, the input tax credit will not be eligible to my customers. So अभी इसमें एंगल क्या है गवर्नमेंट के साइड से? व्हाट दे आर थिंकिंग इज कि लोग रजिस्ट्रेशन ले लेते हैं, नए नए रिटर्न 1 फाइल करते हैं बट 3B फाइल नहीं करते एंड दे जस्ट गेट वैनिश्ड. बट इसमें ये हो सकता है कि कल जाके कोई जेन्युइन रजिस्ट्रेशन है, जेन्युइन टैक्स पेयर है, इज रजिस्टरिंग बट हिज कस्टमर मे हैव टू वेट फॉर अवेलिंग टैक्स क्रेडिट ऑफ दैट पर्सन. अगेन द लॉजिक by government may be correct, but the impact of that may be felt by everybody. So government may restrict availment of tax credit, particularly in respect of newly registered taxpayers. अब वो रिस्ट्रिक्शन क्या लाएंगे? वो 1 महीने का लाएंगे, 2 महीने का लाएंगे, कुछ अमाउंट्स का लाएंगे, is yet to be specified. We have to really see. So these are what ये से ये तो अभी ट्रेलर है. सो पहला ट्रेलर उन्होंने दिया कि नए रजिस्ट्रेशन जो टैक्स पेयर्स है, नए टैक्स पेयर्स, उनका क्रेडिट मे बी रिस्ट्रिक्टेड. द टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन मे बी स्पेसिफाइड सब्सिक्वेंटली. देन सेकंड कंडीशन इज देयर कैन बी अ क्लास ऑफ टैक्स पेयर हु हैज डिफॉल्टेड इन पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स फॉर सच पीरियड एज मे बी प्रिस्क्राइब्ड. So the government would prescribe that if somebody has not paid tax for consecutive 2 months or a month or a 3 month, then any transaction reported by that taxpayer, the credit of that will not be eligible to the recipient. Then going on to the next important condition, and again important and at the same time complicated condition. Now it says that if your supplier has reported more GST liability in their GSTR1 than that of what he has paid in his GSTR3B, then in that cases also all transaction of that supplier may be put under the restricted category. Now this is a very big amendment which is going to put everybody in a soup. There can be reason for difference in tax liability, what I report in GSTR1 and what I have paid in GSTR3B. However, even if there are differences in that, of course, the extent would be specified to what extent they want to put this provision. But more importantly, if there is even 1% or 1 transaction difference, all the transactions for that supplier would be restricted for availment of the credit. यानी आपके सप्लायर ने उसके GSTR1 में अगर कुछ गलती किया है और उसके GSTR1 और 3B में मिसमैच है, then for that suppliers आपको क्रेडिट रिस्ट्रिक्टेड रहेगा. Next, again, condition which is supplier dependent. If your supplier has availed the credit more than what it is appearing in his 2B, so अगर आपके सप्लायर ने GSTR 2B से ज्यादा क्रेडिट लिया है जो उसने नहीं लेना चाहिए था गवर्नमेंट के हिसाब से, तो वो सप्लायर के भी ट्रांजैक्शन पूरे रिस्ट्रिक्टेड कैटेगरी में आ जाएंगे. So any default, even if your supplier is making on account of his GSTR1 3B mismatch, or if your supplier is availing credit more than what his GSTR 2B says, still for that credit also I would be penalized, or that credit would be restricted to me. The next restriction says that registered taxpayer defaulted in payment of tax under section 49(12) subsection 12. ये मैंने आपको just ऊपर बताया. Government may come up with a condition that you have to pay tax only to the extent of what is specified from your electronic credit ledger. अगर उसका भी डिफॉल्ट आपके सप्लायर ने किया है तो भी आपको क्रेडिट उसका रिस्ट्रिक्टेड कैटेगरी में रहेगा. और उसके बाद एक उन्होंने यूनिवर्सल कैटेगरी डाला है, सच अदर क्लास ऑफ पर्सन एज में बी स्पेसिफाइड। इसके बाद भी अगर कोई छूट गया सप्लायर आपका, तो आपको उसमें वो कवर कर सकते हैं एज दे में स्पेसिफाइड। यानी आप समझिए, आपके इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट now has become more important than your outward liability. The focus is simply on controlling the input tax credit. जैसे मैंने बोला, गवर्नमेंट का इंटेंट भले ही सही होगा to reduce the menace, but you have to look at the wide ranging impact of this provision on every GST taxpayers. जो सही है, जो सही ले रहे हैं. So these kind of conditions and restriction on input tax credit is certainly going to impact your working capital. So you have to be really prepared for such kind of change in provisions. माना गवर्नमेंट का इंटेंशन सही है कि टैक्स पेमेंट जैसे होना चाहिए था, टैक्स पेमेंट के बाद ही क्रेडिट मिलना चाहिए था, पर द वे दे वांट टू पुट सच काइंड ऑफ रिस्ट्रिक्शंस is simply unheard of anywhere, and the kind of impact it is going to have, because ये टाइप अगर मुझे देखना है कि ये सप्लायर्स क्या कर रहे हैं, कैसे कर रहे हैं. गवर्नमेंट ने जब जीएसटी इंप्लीमेंट हुआ था, तब भले ही उन्होंने एक जीएसटी रेटिंग का कॉन्सेप्ट निकाला था. सो वो जीएसटी रेटिंग का कॉन्सेप्ट आज गवर्नमेंट को जीएसटीएन पोर्टल पे लाना जरूरी है, अदरवाइज इट वुड बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर द टैक्स पेयर्स टू रियली आइडेंटिफाई. यानी अगर मैं जोक में बोलूं कि पहले देयर आर लॉट ऑफ पोर्टल्स फॉर फाइंडिंग योर ब्राइड्स एंड ग्रूम्स, सिमिलरली आपको ऐसे पोर्टल लगेंगे टू फाइंड द सप्लायर्स हु इज कंप्लाइंग विद ऑल दीज कंडीशंस, देयर लायबिलिटीज आर करेक्ट, their what credit they are availing is correct, and I don't know how I am supposed to, as a taxpayer, how I am supposed to follow all those conditions and ensure that all my suppliers are following this. और ये सब कंडीशन देख के अल्टीमेटली एक ही चीज होने वाली है, people will not pay GST tax amount unless it is clearly reflected on the portal by the सप्लायर्स. अगर ये नहीं रहा तो आपको टैक्स का पेमेंट ही नहीं करना. ये कंडीशन अभी ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग आने वाले हैं, और जीएसटीआर 2B एक नया हीरो मैं आपको बोल रहा हूं जो जीएसटी में उभरता सितारा है. जीएसटीआर 2B अभी पूरा फोकस, पहले 3B था, जीएसटीआर 1 था, अभी नया सितारा आया है ये जीएसटीआर 2B, जिसपे सभी का फोकस रहने वाला है. So it is very important that we are correctly filing the returns. It is very important that even your suppliers are following that process and they are correctly filing the returns. और ये जो पूरा चेन को वो ब्लॉक कर रहे हैं, that makes a very I would say clear case that all your entire chain has to be clear. Even if your supplier is defaulting, his suppliers are defaulting, he would be impacted. He is getting impacted, you would be getting impacted. So the entire chain has to be tax compliant. The entire chain has to follow the process. Then only you will be eligible for input tax credit. अब हो सकता है इतने सब आईटीसी के प्रोविजन देख के एक चीज मुझे बड़ी अच्छी लगती है, ये गवर्नमेंट आईटीसी के कंडीशन ही निकाल दे. आप किसी को आईटीसी मत दो, आप सीधा बोलो सब कंपोजिशन में जाओ, आपका क्या टैक्स भरना है भरो. क्योंकि इतने अगर आईटीसी के कंडीशन मुझे फॉलो करना है, मेरे सप्लायर को फॉलो करना है, तो मुझे बिजनेस करना है या ये इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट देखना है. सो दैट इज व्हाई आई से अगेन दैट ये जो आईटीसी के प्रोविजन है ये कोई फ्लावर नहीं है, रियली फायर है. आपको इस फायर को ठीक तरह से हैंडल करना पड़ेगा, आपको बड़ा ही विजिलेंट रहना पड़ेगा while availing your input tax credit, because if you default in your input tax credit, you default, your customer will also be impacted. So आपको आपके सप्लायर ने फॉलो करना है, आपके सप्लायर ने उसका लॉ का प्रोविजन फॉलो करना है, उससे भी अगर गलती होती है तो आपको फॉलो करना है ताकि आपके कस्टमर कंप्लायंट रहे। सो दोनों तरफ से आपको आपके प्रोविजंस, आउटवर्ड लाइबिलिटीज आपको ठीक से असेस करके पे करना है। सो टेकिंग बैक इंपॉर्टेंट 2 cues फ्रॉम दिस जीएसटी अमेंडमेंट। फर्स्ट जो मैंने बोला, there may be restriction coming forward for utilizing input tax credit for payment of your outward tax, and these are the restrictions which are placed on you while availing input tax credit, जिसमें आपको तो विजिलेंट रहना ही है, आपके सप्लायर्स को भी कंप्लायंट रहना जरूरी है। सो द एंटायर चेन हैज टू बी वेरी मच कंप्लायंट so that the credit is properly availed. I know I'm taking repeating things, but these are the important amendments for everybody, every taxpayer. Now, the concept of provisional availment of input tax credit is replaced. ये natural था। पहले अगर आप देखें section 41, it says that they will allow you provisional credit under GSTR 3B, और आपको हम बाद में assess करेंगे, आपको correct ये करना है। Now, considering the concept of GSTR 2B, now अभी कोई provisional रहा ही नहीं है, आपको जो 2B में आया है उतना क्रेडिट लेना है। सो ऐसा तो कोई कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ प्रोविजनल अवेलमेंट रहा ही नहीं है। अगर आप उससे ज्यादा लेंगे तो आपको ब्लॉक कर देंगे, आपके सब ट्रांजैक्शन को वो रिस्ट्रिक्टेड कर देंगे, इवन आपके सब कस्टमर को आपका क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा। The section 41 also says that if supplier has not paid the tax, then you are required to reverse the credit along with interest. And if supplier pays tax subsequently, you can re-avail the credit. तो अभी आपके मन में ये क्वेश्चन आएगा कि सप्लायर ने टैक्स, सपोज मेरा लास्ट ड्यू डेट सितंबर था, उसके बाद या नवंबर है अभी नए प्रोविजन के हिसाब से, और उसने उसके बाद टैक्स का पेमेंट किया, तो कैन आई अवेल टुडे द क्रेडिट ऑफ व्हाट सप्लायर हैज पेड टैक्स आफ्टर 1 year or 2 years or something? Right now, the Act do not provide any clarity on that. The Act just says that you can re-avail the credit subject to such conditions as may be specified. यानी इसमें रूल्स आना बाकी है। जैसे मैंने बोला, ये सिर्फ झांकी है, पिक्चर अभी पूरी बाकी है। अभी ये प्रोविजन के बेसिस पे गवर्नमेंट क्या क्या रूल लेके आती है, ये देखना बड़ा ही इंटरेस्टिंग रहेगा। How they want to implement these restrictions would be very much interested. I would be really interested to see how they would be, they would like to put these into place by way of rules. Correct? Then time limit for availing. This is a welcome and good move. They have said that the last date for availing credit, earlier it was September month return, the due date of September month. Now it is replaced with 30th November. So आपको 30 नवंबर तक क्रेडिट लेना है। अभी फिक्स डेट दे दिया है। पहले क्या था? ड्यू डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग ऑफ रिटर्न फॉर द मंथ ऑफ सितंबर। सो अभी अगर सपोज सितंबर के मंथ का ड्यू डेट अगर गवर्नमेंट ने कोई रीजन से बढ़ा दिया, तो आपका क्रेडिट लेने का टाइम भी वो हिसाब से बढ़ता था। नाउ द गवर्नमेंट इज वेरी क्लियर, दे से दैट आपको 30 नवंबर तक क्रेडिट लेना है, जो भी इनवॉइस प्रीवियस फाइनेंशियल ईयर के है, उसके बाद आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा। सो देयर इज डीलिंकिंग ऑफ ड्यू डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग ऑफ रिटर्न ऑफ दैट सितंबर मंथ, and now a clear date has been specified. So time limit for availing input tax credit is now 30th November of the subsequent financial year to which those transaction pertains. So it's a good move, welcome move. Now another good move which government was in any case saying, GST Council has clarified. The only pending was clear amendment in section 50 subsection 3, which is pertaining to interest on wrong availment of ITC. Now that section has been clearly amended. It clearly now says that if you have wrongly availed input tax credit and utilized it, then only interest would come on you. If you have not utilized the input tax credit, then no interest would come on that unutilized ITC. ये जीएसटी काउंसिल का डिसीजन पहले से भी क्लियर था एंड द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट दिस जब भी ये प्रोविजन नोटिफाई होगा ये रिट्रोस्पेक्टिव इफेक्ट 1 जुलाई 2017 से होगा. वेरी लॉजिकल, वेरी करेक्ट दैट any wrong availment of credit, if I'm not utilized, there should not be interest on that because I have not utilized. And there were so many judgments on that which also came of high court, different high courts, that there would not be any interest if I'm not utilizing that credit. So that the section itself is now proposed to be amended, and that too with effect from 1st July, that there would not be any interest if I am availing wrong input tax credit but I am not utilizing it. आउटवर्ड के लिए तो था ही पहले, अभी इनवर्ड के लिए भी बहुत ही क्लियर प्रोविजन लेकर आ गए हैं. Then again one good move, they have said that time limit for issuance of credit note, earlier it was September, now they are extending it to the month of November. यानी 30th November तक आप credit note issue कर सकते हो for the transactions which are pertaining to the previous financial year. Very good and welcome move. Then important something for the cancellation of registration. जैसे मैं बार बार गवर्नमेंट का फोकस यही रहा है कि जो रॉन्ग टैक्स पेयर्स है, जो मिसयूज कर रहे हैं सिस्टम को, उनको कंट्रोल करे. Now earlier what government has thought at the time of implementation of GST is if somebody do not file consecutive return for 6 months, their registration can be cancelled. तो अभी गवर्नमेंट के पास 6 महीने का टाइम था, बट the way they are targeting the taxpayers who are doing I would say unreported transactions or not payment of tax, just issuing tax invoice, the government has said that we can cancel the registration for taxpayer other than composition for the period as may be prescribed. So they will prescribe the period. उनको लगता है 3 महीने में ही कैंसिल होना चाहिए. They may notify it and they may cancel the such errant, I would say, the error related dealers who are not paying tax, the registration can be cancelled. In case of composition dealer, the registration can be cancelled if he fails to file the return for the financial year even after 3 months of the end of the financial year. So these are the cancellation related provisions. Outward supply returns, there are 2 things important which the changes has been proposed. The time limit has been extended for correcting the transaction which I have reported till 30th November. पहले September था, अभी November कर दिया. And most importantly, there has to be a sequential filing of outward supply returns. अभी पहले 3B के लिए sequential filing था, अभी even GSTR 1 के लिए भी sequential filing जरूरी किया है. So now even GSTR 1 has to be filed. Just hold on. Yeah. So GSTR 1 has to be filed sequentially. Then only you can file a subsequent period return. पहले कैसा था? अगर suppose for an example, if I am filing return for the period of, I have not filed return for the period of Jan, I could file GSTR 1 for the month of Feb. Now they want to plug that. They say that you have to sequentially file all your returns. So you have to first file GSTR 1 for the month of Jan, and then only you can file the GSTR 1 for the period of February. Then next important and welcome change, you can transfer the electronic cash balance from one head to another. Like if you have balance in IGST, you can transfer to CGST or SGST. One more good that you can transfer from one GSTN to another GSTN also, but under the same umbrella of PAN. So what they call it in the legal terminology, a distinct person. So you can transfer from your own one state GSTN to your other state GSTN. You can transfer the cash balance. Of course, there are certain restrictions they would be putting, like if there are any outward liabilities which are unpaid for that GSTN, then you cannot transfer. else you can transfer the cash balance from one GSTN to another. This is a welcome move, logical है, बहुत अच्छा move है. अगर मेरे एक जगह पे मैंने कहीं पे excess payment कर दिया है, दूसरे जगह पे मुझे उसका requirement है, I can really transfer that amount. Again, a welcome move. So these are the important changes in GST Act. Apart from that, there are certain changes on procedural aspect which government is coming up. We will really get to know when the rules are notified in that effect. Now GST Act के provisions, just to make it clear, आपके मन में question होगा ये कब से effective है? ये जो मैंने सब बात की ये effective कब से है? So certainly these provisions would be effective after the date it would be notified. अभी तक किसी भी ये provision को notify नहीं किया है. इसके बहुत reason है. हर एक state को ये amendment लेकर आना है. उसके बाद government would notify those changes and then it would be effective against that. Now moving on to Customs Acts and Rules. Customs Act में Act and Rules tariff my colleague Preeti would be covering. On Custom Acts and important custom rules, what changes have been proposed. Now, the first important change has been proposed in the definition of proper officer. Let me bring you the logic of that change. In one case of Canon India versus Commissioner of Customs, the Supreme Court had held that DRI, Directorate of Revenue Intelligence officers, are not proper officers for issuing show cause notice. So ये case में DRI has issued show cause notice to Canon India. Canon India fought on the technical ground that DRI itself is a not proper officer for that. Now in order to, you may say, negate or address this decision, the government has proposed to amend this proper officer definition under the Custom Act to include preventive and DRI officer under the definition of proper officer. So एक ये reason था preventive और DRI को इनको include करना था. दूसरा reason ये है proper officer के definition का change करना. We all know that even in customs we are moving towards faceless assessment. So हो सकता है मेरा bill of entry नावा शेवा में फाइल हो रहा है, but मेरा ऑफिसर बैठा है कहीं नागपुर में या कलकत्ता में या दिल्ली में, because in faceless the case may be referred to anybody. So they've added a definition into proper officer that computer जिसको assess करेगा वो file, that would be proper officer for that particular transaction and assessment. So that's the second reason why the definition of proper officer is changing, because very logical faceless assessment में मैटर किसी के पास भी जा सकता है, वो ऑफिसर कहीं भी बैठ सकता है. जरूरी नहीं कि जहां पे मेरा पोर्ट ऑफ इंपोर्ट हो, जहां पे मेरा क्लियरेंस है, वहीं पे वो ऑफिसर बैठे. Then another reason for which the concept of proper officer is redefined is the government may allocate specific cases to one officer. So they may allocate specific cases to an officer instead of matter being looked, same matter being looked by different jurisdictional custom. यानी हो सकता है मेरा कोई मैटर अगर JNPT पे चल रहा है, तो आज क्या होता है, JNPT का ऑफिसर अलग, चेन्नई का ऑफिसर अलग, मुंबई पोर्ट का ऑफिसर अलग. गवर्नमेंट में नोटिफाई दैट ये एक कंपनी है, उनका एक मैटर है, भले इंपोर्ट अलग अलग जगह पे हो, एक ही ऑफिसर इसको पूरा कंप्लीट करेगा. वेरी लॉजिकल एंड क्लियर, सो दैट there would be one step where I have to represent even one person where I have to go. ये दोनों तरफ से अच्छा है, गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से भी अच्छा है कि एक आदमी ये पूरा एंड टू एंड देखे, असेसी की तरफ से भी अच्छा है कि उसको 10 जगह नहीं जाना पड़े, एक ही जगह पे वो उसका रिप्रेजेंटेशन जो भी है वो करे. So with this the definition of proper officer is seek to be amended. ये सब 4-5 चीजों को इंक्लूड करके किया है. और इसके टॉप ऑफ दैट भले ही सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने डिसीजन दिया है, द गवर्नमेंट हैज आल्सो इंसर्टेड वन सेक्शन कि आज तक ये लोगों ने जो भी एक्शन लिए, यानी DIR ऑफिसर या प्रिवेंटिव ऑफिसर, वो सही माने जाएंगे. यानी उन्होंने भले ही हमसे कोई टेक्निकल एरर हुई है कि DIR ऑफिसर इज नॉट प्रॉपर ऑफिसर, बट नाउ वी आर इंक्लूडिंग देम इन अ प्रॉपर ऑफिसर. और इनके जो भी पास्ट एक्शन है, जो भी पास्ट इन्होंने शो कॉज नोटिस इशू किए है, या जो भी पास्ट एडजुडिकेशन इनके पास चल रहे हैं, दैट वुड बी covered and that would be very valid. So that kind of amendment is also done. So उन्होंने भले ही उनके लिए setback रहा, but government may have gone one step back, but with these two amendments they want to go 2 steps ahead. Then valuation of goods, section 14 of valuation of goods, the new rule is going to come for valuation of certain class of goods जहां पे गवर्नमेंट को लगता है कि वैल्यूएशन इज नॉट करेक्ट या कहीं पे अंडर वैल्यूएशन हो रहा है, इसके भी रूल्स आएंगे. व्हाट रियली द रूल्स वुड कवर द क्लास ऑफ गुड्स, बट सर्टेनली गवर्नमेंट हैज केम अक्रॉस सर्टेन क्लास ऑफ गुड्स where they have seen that there is a chance of undervaluation. People are misdeclaring. पहले क्या होता था, सिर्फ रिलेटेड पार्टी में स्क्रूटिनी होता था जो एसवीबी के थ्रू होता था, बट इवन इफ नाउ यू आर इंपोर्टिंग सर्टेन क्लास ऑफ गुड्स इवन फ्रॉम एन अनरिलेटेड बायर, they may come under the purview of valuation of those goods and the case may be referred to the valuation branch. अब इसके rules exactly क्या आएंगे, we have to really see. It is not yet notified. The rules would come, and the government is very clear that they said that they want to address the issue of undervaluation in certain class of goods. So those class of goods and that undervaluation the government is going to specify under the rules. Next important and welcome provision in advance ruling. Now pehle advance ruling, once you get an advance ruling, that was valid for a lifelong period unless there is a change in the underlying law or the facts of the matter. यानी एक बार मेरा नाम रख दिया तो मेरा नाम रख दिया. अभी एडवांस रूलिंग में द गवर्नमेंट हैज केम अप विद अ वेलकम प्रोविजन फ्रॉम बोथ एंड्स दैट एडवांस रूलिंग विल बी वैलिड फॉर अ पीरियड ऑफ 3 years only unless there is no change in the law or facts in the matter. अगर यानी अगर आपके मैटर और लॉ सेम है तो आपका एडवांस रूलिंग 3 साल तक वैलिड रहेगा. उसके बाद इट इज ओपन फॉर गवर्नमेंट एज वेल एज ओपन फॉर यू टू टेक अ नेसेसरी एक्शन ऑन द सेम. यानी इसमें आपको क्या करना है, अगर आपका कोई एडवांस रूलिंग है आज के डेट में भी, इसमें गवर्नमेंट ने ये भी बोला है आज के डेट के एडवांस रूलिंग का क्या करेंगे, तो उन्होंने बोला है कि जिस दिन ये फाइनेंस बिल पास होगा, जो आज तक के एडवांस रूलिंग पास हुए हैं, वो from the date of assent to this finance bill, those would be valid for the period of next 3 years, and after that government is good to look at that matter again, and or even assessee is free to decide that matter again. So इसमें जैसे मैंने बोला, both side you have got a benefit. If you have got an advance ruling which is negative to you, that negative advance ruling would be valid only for the period of 3 years. From government side, if somebody has given wrong advance ruling which is not binding by this, then they can relook into that advance ruling after period of 3 years and look the matter afresh in that thing. So it's a welcome this. Another small change, the advance ruling fees पहले 10,000 था, अभी freshly they may prescribe. महंगाई बढ़ रही है हर जगह, हो सकता है ये फीस भी गवर्नमेंट बढ़ा दे 10,000 का. Then another important change from data privacy perspective. आज अपने को पता है कि if whatever data is submit to custom, shipping bill हो, bill of entry or some other way, the data, the prices are getting sold in the market. That data is getting sold. Now the government has very categorically amended, added a section to add a data privacy provision. They say that whatever data importer and exporters are submitting in their declaration, यानी declaration यानी क्या, bill of entry के time जो मैं submit करता हूँ या shipping bill file करते time जो मैं submit करता हूँ, that entire data will not be published in public unless government specifies so. And if somebody publishes such data, it would be an offense under the Customs Act. आज अपने को पता है मार्केट में there are a lot of companies or organization who sell such data. Now going forward there will be restriction, a good move, because there has to be a data privacy. At what price I sell, at what price I export, at what price I import should not be made publicly available to anybody at just paying a fraction of money. Then next important change, again from a trade facilitation point of view, the import of goods at concessional rate of duty, IGCRD, what we call it as famously we have coined the word, is set to be amended. The notification is already issued. The good part is the entire process of IGCRD government want to do it on an online process. Going forward, आपको कोई भी IGCR का intimation आपको कस्टम जो jurisdictional custom office में देना नहीं है. Now this amendment is also going to impact export oriented unit because ये process जो IGCR का rule 5 का जो process है ये EOU भी follow करते हैं. Now this entire process of IGCRD would be ऑटोमाइज्ड ऑन अ कॉमन पोर्टल आइस गेट पे प्रोविजन करेंगे. आपको क्या चाहिए, आपके इनपुट्स क्या है, आपके रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है, आपको आइस गेट के पोर्टल पे डालना है. यू विल गेट अ स्पेसिफिक आइडेंटिफिकेशन नंबर फॉर दैट इंटीमेशन. दैट आइडेंटिफिकेशन नंबर यू हैव टू यूज फॉर फाइलिंग योर बिल ऑफ एंट्रीज. सो यू विल गेट अ एक्नॉलेजमेंट नंबर for your intimations for imports. That acknowledgement number you have to mention on filing of bill of entry और ऑटोमेटिकली आपका बॉन्ड वहां से ही डेबिट होता रहेगा. आपको एक ही चीज के लिए जुरिस्डिक्शनल कस्टम को जाना है, वो है सबमिशन ऑफ कंटिन्यूटी बॉन्ड. ऑफ कोर्स फॉर EOU B17 bonded, for them it is not a continuity bond. So for other than EOUs, you have to only go to the jurisdictional customs for continuity bond. इसके सिवा सब प्रोसेस उन्होंने ऑनलाइन किया है. जो अपन मंथली फॉर्म भरते हैं, रिटर्न जो भरते हैं IGCRD का, वो भी ऑनलाइन कर दिया. यू डोंट नीड टू सबमिट दैट टू अ jurisdictional custom officer, that form. Further, in IGCRD, there was a permission required for re-export of goods. Even that permission is now removed. They say you re-export, there are certain conditions that it should be exported equal to or more than the value of import. Once you follow that condition, you can re-export those goods without any conditions or permissions from the custom authorities, jurisdictional custom authorities. और जैसे मैंने बोला, आपको monthly form भी online submit करना है. The forms are already notified, so this would be effective. So entire RGCRD would be monitored online. आपको physically जाने का काम नहीं है jurisdictional customs में. So which is a very 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 welcome move. जिस तरह से वो e-governance पे focus दे रहे हैं, so that governance is really playing an important role. So entire IGCRD would, this process would be online. So that's it from my side. On this, if you have any question, you can drop in through chat box or Q&A section. At the end of session, we all would be addressing your questions. So thank you, Amit.
Yes, thank you, Manoj, for giving the crisp of GST changes and the custom changes. Really, whatever you have told about the GST, if government is saying that you have to be more systematic and more digital information will be flowed on, and if you want GST, you have to be get the smart taxpayers as a vendor. So get smart taxpayer as a vendor, or get a smart consultants as your tax administration. So whatever tax compliances you are managing, you have to get a smart consultants. So these are the GST for all, and one more welcome move for the IGCRD compliances. So now I request CA Preeti Kulkarni madam to give the insights of customs tariff.
Is it visible? Yes. Okay. हाँ एक. Oh. So is it visible clearly? Yes. Yes. Good evening, all. After a session by Nawal sir and Manoj, some of the major changes, which is like ITC restrictions, definitely government is into getting the tax which is being paid. However, practically how it is going to happen, and it would impact the industry by large. So this is the very important change that has been brought into, wherein restrictions have been placed for availing ITC. Secondly, SEZ in budget, it has been said that there will be changes in SEZs. IGCRD has been changed. I would start with the major customs duty changes that has been announced. Now, the basic focus, if you go through the budget speech in the morning as well, the basic focus was Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and to promote the growth of domestic industry. So that was the overall focus of the budget today. And hence, when we look at the customs duty structure, what they have done is they have done a comprehensive review of the customs duty exemptions. So wherever it was, the rate was through, not through the directly tariff entry, but through various notifications, they have tried to bring under the directly tariff rate, and hence it has been a simplification process. So around more than 350 items have been reviewed, and the tariff rates has been changed. Secondly, they want to have the capital investments in India, capital goods. So BCD on capital goods have been exempted for major of the capital goods and for the project imports. Exemptions for bona fide exporters like handicraft, apparels, leather goods, they are trying to have. So in relation to import for these industries, there has been an exemption. If you see sector specific, now the custom for electronic goods, it is like for smart watches or for hearing aids, they are like increasing the customs duty rate so as to promote the Indian industry. And also in that they are doing this in a phased manner. So maybe up to for 3 to 4 years, they are giving the different rates, which I'll cover subsequently. But for electronic industry, the wearable devices and smartwatches and the hearing devices, there has been a change in the customs duty. The gems and jewelry sector, customs duty on uncut and polished diamonds and gemstone is being reduced. And also with respect to simply sewn diamond, it would now attract a nil rate of customs duty. Imitation jewelry is being taxed, and a cap of rupees 400 per kg has been put on. Now, with respect to MSME sector, I don't know actually, but umbrellas was a focus today, and the duty on umbrellas has been raised for 20%, raised to 20%. Exemptions to parts of umbrellas has been withdrawn, and the exemption which was given to steel scrap last year is also extended for 1 more year. So this is for the MSME sector. Chemical sector, like reduction of customs duty on certain critical chemicals like methanol acid and heavy feedstock for petroleum refining has been reduced, and there has been an increase in customs duty for sodium cyanide. If you go the individual tariff changes, custom tariff changes, so the edible oil has been chapter heading 1516. 3,000 has been reduced from 10%, has been increased from 30% to 100%. Umbrellas, it has been increased 10 to 20. Gem and jewelry sector, 20%, but whichever is higher for 400 rupees kg. Then loudspeakers, electronic items, it has been increased from 15% to 20%. Headphones, earphones, it has been increased from 15% to 20%. Smart meters, electronic items falling under 9028 has been increased from 15% to 25%. And in case of circuit board assembly, it is being from 10% to 20%. So electronic items, definitely the BCD has been increased. With respect to solar cells, the customs duty is increasing from 20 to 25%. Now, as I said, that there are changes in the customs tariff schedule. So various notifications, rates are prescribed through various notifications. They have now been done into a into the customs tariff schedule directly. So more than 500 HSN are there, wherein the list is will be circulated, but it is being directly on the tariff now, and unless going through various notifications, because once we have an HSN, we go into the various notifications to have exact rates. Sorry. However, now for these items, there is a simplification measure announced, and hence there is being an simplification process wherein that it will be directly a tariff schedule entry. Secondly, there will be new entries which are added for alignment of Indian tariff with amendment to HS 22 published by World Custom Organization to bring clarity. So now by this new tariff entries will be introduced to identify new categories of fuels, to give a fill-up to identification of exports of handicrafts, clarify the manner of determination of iron content in iron ore, and a greater clarity on the goods being exempted through different notifications. Now, as I said, the National Policy for Capital Goods 2016 is intends to have an investment in India to double in 5 years. So maybe to increase that, there has been an removal of exemption of BCD. So now the BCD on these goods would be removed in a phased manner, so that there will be a restriction. There will be a restriction, or there will be some kind of non-incentivization for import of capital goods in a phased manner. So maybe in some cases the BCD is withdrawn in 22, 23, some are immediately. So all these various industries or various sectors, the capital goods which were having an BCD exemption or some kind of exemptions, is now going to be withdrawn. So textile industries, machinery for synthetic fiber, machinery for garment sector. Then we have silk industry. Also with respect to machineries for knitting and weaving machines, all these things, it will be phased out in a exemption will be phased out. Power sector also, with respect to capital goods required for high voltage power transmission, or will be providing an exemption. Exemption will be removed, sorry. So petroleum products, parts of raw material and other items which were required, so that BCD will be, exemption will be removed, and the dates are separately mentioned. Specifically, machinery required for effluent treatment for leather industry, food packaging industry, other sectors as well, wherein the BCD was exempted. Now the exemption has been removed from various dates as will be notified. Project imports also, wherein there was a specific exemptions. Now the exemptions will be withdrawn after like the projects which are registered after 30th September or 30th September 22 or 23. Excise on petrol. So as it was mentioned in the budget speech, to promote blending of motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, with ethanol, methanol, E12, E15. So the content of ethanol 12%, 15% content, and blending of high-speed diesel with biodiesel. So now there will be an increase in the basic duty of ₹2 per liter on petrol and diesel, that is without blending. So unblended petrol will be now costlier by ₹2, and it will be effective from 1st of October 2022. Social welfare charge, which was levied under certain for certain items, is there has been either the exemption has been provided or exemption has been withdrawn. So with respect to edible fruit nuts, animal and vegetable fats, salt and sulfur, cotton, man-made filaments, man-made staple fibers, special woven fabrics, the exemption will be there as per the chapter heading specified, and there will be some HSN wherein the exemption for social welfare has been withdrawn. Export duty, so chapter 41, raw hides and skins of buffalo, the BCD has been reduced from 40% to 30%. Anti-dumping duties is being revoked, it's being cancelled in some cases, like straight length bars, rods of alloy steel, high-speed steel of non-cobalt grade, flat rolled product of steel, and in case of certain hot rolled and cold rolled stainless steel flat products originating from People's Republic of China, the CVD has also been revoked. Now, as I said, that is the production of these things in a phased manner. For smart watches, now the items required for that, they have described the rate, like maybe 2022, 23 to 25, 26. So in certain cases, it is nil. In certain, the trend is increasing. So basically, they want to have an manufacturing in India. So in a phased manner, they are going to increase the BCD portion so as to develop the products in India and reduce the import content. Similarly, for hearable devices, they have specified the chapter heading, whatever is required and how it will be, the rates have been prescribed. So they have given a good thing that they have given, not for this year, but anyone who is going to intending for setting up industries in these products, they will be at least have an idea that in this these will be the rates for the for the coming 4 years. Central excise, initially 49/2008 notification was issued to give an abatement as a percentage of retail sale price for some of the products. It is considering now GST, where all products have been there and there is nothing being on abatement or percentage for valuation. It will, this notification 49/2008 will be applicable only in case of tobacco and products falling under chapter 2403. So this is from my end, and yes, I request now Manoj sir, Manoj Bede sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Priti madam. Now I request Manoj Bede sir for giving the insights of direct tax and the proposed changes in the budget. Again, there will be a question answer round. So keep posted your questions in the question box. So now I request Manoj Bede sir.
मग माझा फोन तिकडनं बंद करायचा आहे. take my part. Good evening, everybody. Now it's already a late evening, I should say. So the last subject now remaining is income tax. So I'm going to try and give you some important highlights because there are so many changes covering the whole income tax in 15 to 20 minutes or 25 minutes is not going to be easy. So whatever I felt is relevant, I've tried to incorporate in my presentation. So can I have it on this side? Or you can minimize that. This one. So now first I'm going to cover some important definition. Now in the definition of slum sale, earlier the word what was used was sales. So they now they have broadened that word of sales and incorporated transfer. So naturally the scope has been widened by not just restricting to sales but to transfer. Now this year they have introduced this virtual digital asset, because we have been hearing lot on these cryptocurrencies, whether taxable, not taxable, direct tax, indirect tax. So all that now they have put to rest and they have put a definition. They have introduced this definition. So it should contain cryptographic currency, not being so other than what? So cryptographic currency, not Indian currency or foreign currency, and which can be traded electronically. So it has to be cryptographic currency. It has to be traded electronically, and it should not be Indian currency or foreign currency. And plus there is no non-fungible tokens, that is NFTs. They are also defined under virtual digital asset. Voice. Now we come to income which is exempt in the hands of non-resident and what changes has been brought here. Earlier, non-deliverable forwards, they were exempted, the income on that was exempted to non-residents. So now they have also incorporated this offshore derivatives and over-the-counter derivatives. So this has also been incorporated where income will be exempted, subject to what? They should be on the offshore banking unit, and where they are traded on international financial service centers, which is there in Gujarat. That is, we call it as GIFT, GIFT. So a lot of changes you will see because government is promoting that for foreign investors, for non-residents, and you will find a lot of changes, a lot of incentives on trading on that. Then also earlier there was royalty or interest income which was earned by non-residents again for aircrafts. So what they have done, they have also added now, along with aircraft, they have added ship to it. So on account of lease of ship. Then comes any income derived by non-resident from portfolio of securities or financial products or funds, which are managed or administered by any portfolio manager on behalf of such non-resident. Again, they should be in the offshore banking unit of IFCI. So you'll find that all the benefits, whatever trading takes place, whether it is in forward derivatives or over-the-counter derivatives, offshore derivatives, or any royalty or interest incomes, then on securities that are traded. So everywhere you will find that there is an exemption subject to the accounts are maintained in the offshore banking units of the IFCI. Now, in this income from property held for charitable or religious purposes, voluntary contribution if they are receiving for renovation or repairs of the property. So in these cases also, separate corpus is being created, and that will also be treated under exemption. So this is again a welcome move, because many times these issues are there, that when it comes to new buildings, new construction, yes, but when it comes to repairs, renovation, there was always a confusion. So it has been rightly brought under this corpus, and voluntary contributions will be exempted. Then in case if it is violated, then such income will be taxed at 30%. Naturally, when the tax comes, interest is also going to be charged on the liability. So if you violate, straight away 30% tax. Now in this salaries and perquisites, as rightly they have also included any benefits that have been given relating to the COVID in the hands of the employees. Then here there was always a confusion whether tax includes surcharge or cess. So now they have amended this section 40, and they have clearly mentioned that tax includes surcharge or cess, and so it will not be a deductible expenditure. And that too, they have brought it with retrospective effect from 1/4/2005. Now again, there was always a confusion on this goodwill. So if the goodwill, if we consider in the block of assets, and if we have taken, every year, if the value has been reduced, so reduction has been taken place. So naturally, whenever the business we are going to sell along with goodwill, so that will be calculated as a short-term capital gain. Now here, again, sale of shares. So exemption has been extended to specified funds, which are again regulated by the IFCI. So earlier it was restricted to SEBI, but now they have even the specified funds which are regulated by IFSC. They will also be exempted on the profits that is going to be generated over and above the face value. Now this cash credit amounts. So amounts which are credited will also include now loans on borrowings for which no satisfactory explanation will be is given. So that will be treated as income. So they have brought in more clarification by clearly mentioning that even loans and borrowings for which there is no satisfactory explanation, it will be treated as income. So that power has been given to the assessing officers. Now, no set-off of losses consequent to search, surveys, requisition if any demands are issued. So total income of any previous year includes any undisclosed income. So if any undisclosed income comes up, so no set-off will be there. Whether it is on account of losses or whether it is on account of unabsorbed depreciation. Then deduction in respect of contribution to pension scheme of central government. So this is again a welcome move. So now employees will be entitled for deductions towards contribution of pension schemes also introduced by the state government. So it is restricted to central government. Even if these schemes are introduced by state government, that contribution of pension will also get the deduction. Then again, there is a deduction in respect of annuity or lump sum made under scheme for maintenance of dependent person having disability. So whatever pension funds one was depositing, those pension, so the amount was supposed to be received only on the death of the person who has been depositing. So now what they have done, they have introduced that even if the funds where they will be paying that annuity amount, or the individual or HUF who can withdraw that amount after attaining the age of 60, even in those cases, deduction will be allowed. So this is again this is restricted to maintenance of dependent person having disability. So even in between, one can withdraw the annuity amount, subject to he forecloses that annuity scheme, because he's then he need not pay any further annuities, further amounts or deposits for these annuity amounts. Issued by dependent will also not be taxable in the hands. In such cases, when we are going to pre-close, in such cases also, it will not be taxable. Then the sunset clauses for eligible startups. So the dates have been extended. So it was April 22. Now eligible startups incorporated before April 23 will also be entitled for the exemption under income tax. Then even new manufacturing domestic companies. So they had introduced this 15% concessional rate of income tax for manufacturing companies on or before who has started production and manufacturing before 31st of March 23 has now been extended further 1 year up to March 24. Then dividends received from foreign companies. So they were getting a concessional rate of income tax at 15%. So now that has been withdrawn. So they will, going forward, they will not be getting, they will not be entitled for this concessional rate of income tax. They'll have to pay tax as per the calculation. Then virtual digital assets. So any income that is going to be generated, there will be a flat rate of, and no deductions will be allowed against such income, and no losses can be set off against such income. So virtual digital assets, cryptocurrencies have been brought under this section for taxability. And 30% is going to be the tax on that. Then there are specified income of certain institutions. So again, this educational institution, universities, trust, which are defined. And if again there is a violation of those conditions, since they are going to avail deductions. So again, for any violation, the tax will be at the rate of 30%. And no deductions will be allowed against such income. Then special provisions on alternate minimum tax for cooperatives. It was 18.5%. It has been brought down to 15%. And it has now they are par with other corporate companies. Because for them it was reduced, but cooperatives were left out. Then in case of search and seizure, so officer to release books of accounts and other documents within 30 days from the date of assessment. So this provision was already there. So now along with assessment, they have also added reassessment, recomputation under subsection 3 of section 143. So this was already existing. So reassessment and recomputation has been incorporated into this section. Then updated returns. This is again a new concept which they have introduced. So this is again a welcome thing, but if you go through the provisions, it is very harsh. So these updated returns, they can be filed within a period of 24 months of the end of the relevant assessment year. So now the conditions are that the updated return should not be a loss return. So then it should not reduce your liability. It should result into refund, or in case of refund, assessee shall not be allowed to file an updated return. So it should not result into refund. Then if any search is initiated, if any survey has been conducted, or if any notice has been served, again this updated returns provision you will not be entitled. So updated returns, if you feel, you can file within 24 months, even after you have filed your normal return. But then there are certain conditions we have to fulfill. Now, what is going to be the tax on these updated returns? So if the original return is, if this updated return, additional income tax to be paid at the rate of 25%. If original return is filed within 12 months from the end of the relevant assessment year. So if the return is filed within 12 months, and if I am going to file updated return and there is an additional income tax, so that 25% is my additional income tax. So one is the tax that is going to be computed on the additional income, plus there will be 25% of the additional income tax. That will have to be that will have to be filed. And if it is not filed within 12 months, but filed within 24 months, then it will be taxed at 50% of the aggregate of tax and interest paid. So it is a very harsh provision if you are going to go for this updated return. So over and above the tax, if your original return is filed within 12 months, then 25%. And if it is over and above 12, but within 24 months, then it is going to be 50% of the aggregate of tax and interest paid. Then here, issue of notice where income has escaped assessment. So assessing officer need not have the approval of special authority. This was always debated. But what they have clearly mentioned, that he did not go for approval subject to the AO has passed an order under clause D of section 148, which talks about conducting inquiry, providing opportunity before issue of notice under section 148. So natural justice is offered to the assessee. Time limit for notice under section 148 between 3 years to 10 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. So evidence which reveal income has escaped was limited to representation through asset. But now, so it was restricted to asset. Now what they have also included is expenditure. So it is not only asset now. They can issue notice even if they find expenditure in respect of a transaction or in relation to an event or occasion which needs explanation. Then also an entry or entries in the books of accounts. So these two things have been incorporated along with asset. Then modification and revision of notice in certain cases. So on the basis of order of adjudicating authority under IBC or NCLT or Supreme Court. So accordingly, the orders, the AO has to modify and raise the revised demands. Procedure where an identical question of law is pending before High Court or Supreme Court. This is again a welcome move. So the principal commissioner not to file any appeal. So he should not file any appeal against any assessees if the identical question of law is arising and the same is pending before the jurisdictional High Court or the Supreme Court in an appeal or in a special leave petition or against the order of the appellate tribunal or the jurisdictional high court. So as long as it is not decided, the principal commissioner should not file any appeal against the order which are in the favor of the assessee and which needs a decision from this authorities, that is the High Court, the Supreme Court. So assessees, favorable orders in favor of assessees, only those orders which needs identical question of law which are pending, only those cases where the principal commissioner should not file an appeal. Then here again the insertion of succession other than death. So here what used to happen, that whenever there is a reorganization, so who should be responsible? Whether the successor should be responsible or the predecessor should be responsible for any acts between this reorganization period. So here they have tried to address that. So now successor will be liable for the assessment or reassessment or other proceedings made on the predecessor during the pendency of reorganization, and successor to modify the return within 6 months from the date of order of the High Court or the adjudicating authority. Now again this TDS to be deducted on 1% of the transaction value or stamp duty value. So earlier it was restricted to 1% of the transaction value. Now they have incorporated the stamp duty value also, and whichever is higher on that value, the TDS will be deducted for transactions relating to immovable property other than agriculture land. Then now this is again a harsh provision. So deduction of tax on benefit of perquisite in respect of business or profession. So TDS to be deducted at 10% on benefits or perquisites to a resident arising out of business or profession whose threshold limit will be 20,000. Now individuals and HUF whose turnover is below 1 crore under business and below 50 lakhs under profession, they are exempt. Or else for any perquisites, any benefits, 10% TDS will have to be deducted for values over and above 20,000. So it can be it can be in kind also, where we'll have to convert that into a value. Payment on transfer of virtual digital asset. Here again they have introduced TDS at the rate of 1% on the value of transfer of this virtual digital asset, and TDS not to be deducted if the value is below 50,000. Then refund for denying liability to deduct tax in certain cases. So TDS under section 195, if I have paid wrongly where it was not required, then I have to file an application within 30 days and apply for the refund of the TDS what has been paid wrongly. Yes, so thank you very much for the patient hearing. I have tried to cover some important provisions and now look forward for any queries. So I request all the panelists also to join.
Yeah. Hello. So there are certain questions. I'll take up those questions. First question for a common man: any change in tax rate for salaried employees or any tax rate change, income tax perspective?
We are very lucky this time that there has been no changes in the tax rates, nor there are any changes in the deductions. What we were expecting that at least the values for our investments where the deductions are there under section 80, there will be some relaxation, but no. So fortunate enough, no tax, but unfortunate that those limits have not been increased.
Next question is pertaining to the issue of IGCRD. So the question is whether 6 months time limit for re-export of goods continues or what. So Naval sir, you would like to address?
As such, IGCRD rule has been changed for the e-mechanism. Otherwise, the rule which was there for the re-export of the limitation period is not changed. So still it continues.
So next issue again pertaining to IGCRD. So even if there is change in IGCRD, particularly online process has been specified, whether the requirement of SIMs or chips for the steel import registrations or such kind of registration would continue to be done. The answer for that is yes. There is only change in IGCRD process. SIM in any case, the requirement is online. Those registration would continue to be required to be done. So next question. Can we get refund of IGST on imported goods returned as it is? Naval sir, you would like to address?
You see, if you can see that when as you are exporting or re-exporting the goods, there is a section 75 where you can get the refund of all the custom duties paid to the extent of 98% or in the ratio when you are re-exporting it based on the limitation period which has been given. And custom duty includes section 12, and section 12 of the Customs Act includes the duties as specified in the Custom Tariff Act, and section 7 of Custom Tariff Act includes the IGST also. So you will get the refund if you have IGST which you have paid and you have not taken the credit of that, then you can get to that extent the 98% or as the case may be applicable to you under section 75.
Okay, thank you, sir. So next question is again on IGCRD, that the process is online. Do you think that the system will support such kind of voluminous data upload?
Answer is yes. Even today, if you see it, earlier we were facing the problem in GSTN network. Now, even the lack of transactions of one company is getting uploaded. So system is taken care of, and now you may be aware that even the NSDL is, that is the SEZ which is operating on the NSDL now will operate on the IceGate system itself. So that itself will say an IceGate number of bill of entries, number of shipping bills, number of drawback claims, and number of even the refund applications are getting processed. So I don't think that will be a cumbersome process. And even though those are there, you can raise the ticket and submit the in e format, and that e format can be uploaded. File uploading facility, Excel uploading facility will be given. So I don't think that will be a cumbersome process.
Okay, I think Mahesh Kulkarni sir has some question. Mahesh sir, you can unmute yourself and raise your question.
Good evening. In fact, I wanted to inquire about the IGCRD process only. So more or less it is clarified in your previous questions. Thank you.
If imported goods are rejected, then same can be sent on LUT invoice under GST.
And you can send it on LUT without payment of duty. There is absolutely no problem. Permission will be needed.
Okay, I think we are.
If any person has got the question, he can raise the hand and immediately unmute himself and ask the question.
So I think we are done with questions. If you have any questions further to what we have addressed, you can reach out to any of us or send your questions to us. We would happy to address those questions. Now I think over to Kiran, Mr. Kiran Savai.
Hello, good evening all. Today it's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks. In today's budget, we saw a lot of amendments. There are various notifications issued for amendments of customs tariff, GST. So there are a lot of things which are there today in budget, and it has been a simplified way and in a crisp manner. It has been explained to us by our eminent speakers. So I am very thankful to our speakers, Ashok Nawal sir, Manoj Bede sir, Preeti madam and my friend Manoj. They have explained us very nicely and the shortest time in a good manner in layman's language. Without jargons, the provisions has been explained to us, and very thankful to. And further, I express my deep sense of gratitude to our participants who have joined this webinar. And also thankful to our Bitsol team who has prepared the presentation and the summary of all the provisions and clause by clause analysis which you are going to receive on your email. Further, I also thanks to our IT team and admin team to arrange this webinar and make it successful. Thank you all once again. Thank you very much.